G'day guys, it's Simon here from Pumped On Property, and in today's video we're going to look at 3 properties that we've recently purchased for our clients where we intend to create the dual income setup. Now the first property that we're going to look at is on the north side of Brisbane in Bray Park. Now this suburb is about 22 kilometres to the north of Brisbane. It's really close to that new Petrie University, which can be a great area to do these dual income setups because the demographics and the type of people that live near these universities are more than willing to move into these properties. Now it's important to note that we always consult a town planner and a granny flat builder before starting one of these projects to make sure that the site that you own or potentially want to go out there and invest in has the capacity to do this. Now fortunately this property in Bray Park ticks every single one of the boxes when it comes to a house and granny flat strategy. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath, high-set Queenslander on a 611 square metre block with a larger than a 15-metre frontage. So we've got plenty of side access on both sides of the property and a massive backyard where we can put the granny flat and still maintain incredible privacy for the main dwelling and the granny flat, and also create that off-street parking as well. Now some investors have their reservations when it comes to buying high-set Queenslanders because they are a little bit old and dated, and because they may not look as nice as a low-set brick and tile. But in fact, if you're looking at doing this house and granny flat strategy, they can be the perfect properties to purchase where you can create the ideal site plan. Now, according to realestate.com, this property is currently worth in the low to mid sevens, around about that $730,000 mark, and the expected rental income from the 3-bed, 1-bathroom house is around the $550 per week. To build a granny flat in the backyard of this property roughly costs around $235,000, and the expectation from local property managers is they should be able to rent that out for about $420 per week, bringing the total project cost of the house and granny flat in the current market to around $965,000, and a weekly rental return of $970 per week from the house and granny flat. Now we know after building a granny flat, if you go to a tax depreciation specialist and generate a report for that property, we find that these granny flats can fetch roughly around $300 to $400 per week in tax depreciation. Obviously consult a tax depreciation specialist before quoting me on those numbers. So assuming you put a 20% deposit down on the purchase of the house and the build of the granny flat, you should be in a position where you're generating neutral to positive cash flow on that property itself, which, as we know, in the current market with higher interest rates and higher property prices, we know that if you can get neutral to positive cash flow, it is an absolute win, because most properties around the country right now are negatively geared. Now we're going to shift our focus to another property down in Wellington Point. Now, as you can see, this property is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, low-set brick and tile, but on a nice 628 square metre block of land. Massive backyard, gives us plenty of space to create that dual income setup and build the granny flat in the backyard. But obviously, if people don't love to go for those high-set Queenslanders, this can be another great alternative. Now, this particular property, according to realestate.com, is currently valued at about $950,000 with a weekly rental estimate of roughly $600 per week. So this particular suburb is a higher quality suburb than Bray Park. As you can see, we're much closer to the water, and in Australia, if you own properties closer to the water, they're generally worth a bit more money. Now, the client that we helped purchase this property, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted a property that was in a blue chip location that was going to beat the market average in terms of long-term capital growth, but still had the ability to build a granny flat to generate more cash flow as well. Now, fortunately in this area, you can build a slightly larger granny flat, which costs you a bit more money, around about $240,000 as a total project cost. And what you're going to get from that is a massive 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, fully self-contained, completely separate, completely private granny flat in the backyard. And with this area being slightly higher quality, then you generally get a little bit more rent. In fact, these granny flats can rent for about $550 per week. So the total project cost of this particular opportunity was about $1.19 million, with a weekly rental income of $1,150 per week, plus those depreciation benefits of roughly $300 to $400 per week in the earlier days of that tax depreciation report. So getting this property into that neutral to positively geared position, assuming that 20% deposit on both the purchase of the house and the build of the granny flat. So people are out there telling you cannot get positive cash flow in the current market. Well, as you can see from these 2 examples, that is BS. You absolutely can. You've just got to be willing to put a little bit of skin in the game. As I said, think outside the box and do something a little bit unique. Now, some people don't really love granny flats, and I completely get that. Look, these things aren't for everyone, but they are for investors who do want long-term capital growth, really good cash flow and tax appreciation benefits. But I wouldn't say that they work on every single property in every single market. In fact, when we do our due diligence for properties that have granny flat potential, we're ruling out up to 90% of properties that are presented on market and off market. So these things are very few and far between. You need to find that needle in a haystack to be able to make it work. But I think it can be a great investment strategy for those active investors that don't want to hold negatively geared properties. Now, the last one that we're going to look at in Redland Bay is a little bit different. You don't always have to go buy a house and build a granny flat in the backyard. In fact, you can go buy a really high quality piece of land like we did here in Redland Bay, and then you can purpose build a dual income property on top of it. Now, the land price here was $450,000. We're in a bayside suburb in the southeast of Brisbane, about 35 kilometres from the Brisbane CBD. We got a nice massive 600 square metre block of land, and our client is planning to build a huge 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom house and granny flat under the same roof line. Now, the way that that works is we've got a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom side, and then a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom side. Now, both completely separate. Got a fence dividing both backyards in the rear of the dwelling. You've got a firewall that separates the 4-bedroom side from the 2-bedroom side. They both get their own single car garage as well. And when you look at the end of the build and you see the property from the front, it just looks like a stock standard low set house. Now, depending on how nice you want to build these things, you're really starting from about $500,000. But our client is choosing to spend a fair bit more than that as they want to up-spec the dwelling because they intend to hold the property for the next 30 years. So a total project cost on something like this would be roughly around the $1 million mark. Now, the rental appraisal for a brand new 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Redland Bay is around about that $700 per week at the moment. And the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom granny flat rental expectations is about $450 per week. So you're getting a combined rental return of $1,150 per week on that project. But with building a full brand new house, you're going to get significantly stronger depreciation benefit, at least $500 in the first few years, and then it will scale down from there on in. So this particular strategy obviously costs quite a lot of money as well, but you can make an incredible return on your investment there as well. So what I love about this strategy is there is many ways to skin a cat. You can buy a house and build the granny flat in the backyard. You could buy a high set Queenslander, build in upstairs as one side, and then build in downstairs as that separate granny flat. You can find an incredible piece of land and purpose build that dual income property on top of it. But most of the time, when we look at the numbers in Brisbane, if you're putting in those 20% deposits, and if you're building the granny flat in an economical way, then there is great opportunity to generate positive cash flow.
G'day guys, my name's Ben and I'm the director here at Pumped on Property, and I just want to say a massive thank you for watching our content today. Now, if you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 to 12 months, then the team and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. In that session, we can talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and we can deeply educate you on the Australian market. And then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the small number of clients that we work with each week. To book your session, all you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that book your free strategy session button. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey as an investor to financial freedom.